Vinyl Collection Part 49. These are now the epilogue episodes within this series. Originally I started this back up in the end of 2020, and here it is now the beginning of 2023, and I'm just getting into all the new additions within my vinyl collection. Like always, it's going to stay the same at 15 records per part, and it's going to be A through Z. But again, just more attention to detail and all the new additions, all the stuff I've yet to talk about. So basically, there's going to be no shortage of vinyl collection parts in the future until either I just stop collecting vinyl or I just stop doing YouTube altogether. But yeah, other than that, what's going to be playing in the background is going to be this full-length by Sorcery being Snowland. Stellar atmospheric ambient black metal from the Quebec black metal scene that if you enjoy Fortress, you'll definitely enjoy SDG. To my surprise, I got this at a used record store in New Bedford, that being Purchase Street Records. They relocated to a bigger store with just a wider selection and saw this and grabbed it up right away. This was put out through Celestial Oak, and as some of you guys know, that label is owned by Sean Count Bagathur here on YouTube. And to even more people's surprises, he started uploading again a handful of months ago, which is really cool, as Sean was kind of like one of the big influences for me to start doing YouTube all the way back in 2014. So it's really cool to see that he's active again on this site. But yeah, as for SDG, definitely check it out if you enjoy atmospheric black metal. Kicking off this vinyl collection part is going to be Abigor with their debut full-length album, Invoke the Dark Age. So I'm quite behind with this because I got this back on my birthday in the year 2021. So it's been almost 2 years and I'm finally talking about it now, this holy grail item. But yeah, Abigor, in my personal view, are gods, essentially, within the Austrian black metal scene. Their musicianship skill is second to no one, and even with their debut full-length album, where they had a very raw and primitive approach within the style of black metal, it's still very vicious and creative stuff. It's not just, guitar riffs that are just tremolo picked to make, like, white noise, essentially, like background music, and just wretched vocals to just make it all the more savage sounding. This is creative, the keyboards added melody, and Selenius, who's also the vocalist of Summoning, just adds a bit of intensity, but it's not just all one pitch. Just, again, every Abigor album, to even their worst material, is just still killer stuff. So you can start anywhere within their discography and just hear some very creative, well-written black metal. But if you want them at their more savage and primitive approach within the style, Invoke the Dark Age is where they really shine with that approach. But yeah, when it comes to getting Abigor LPs, especially all the early stuff, it's really difficult to find. As for some reason they do just a one-and-done type of attitude. And I know they brought it up before on like social media that they were planning on doing represses, but felt as if it's only proper that the first presses stay like just a single one and done LP pressing, which sucks because I'd love to get all the stuff I'm missing by them. And hopefully one day they change their mind with that, because Invoke the Dark Age is some killer raw black metal. But yeah, as to where you can get it, I don't know. I really can't tell you. Maybe Discogs for a stupid amount of money, but I got it for like fairly decent. I talked the seller down to a reasonable price, and I'm very pleased to have this within the shelves of my vinyl collection. But as for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork, backside with the track listing and band photo. This comes on a gatefold. And this vinyl press is the special edition that comes on white and black merge, limited to 100 copies. Next LP is the debut full-length album by African Imperial Wizard, titled That, however it's pronounced. But This is supposedly a collective of individuals from the country of Angola. They're all anonymous, and they play in the style of music that being darkwave and African tribal music. And this stuff is really wild and different from what I'm used to hearing. It's not the most upbeat music, but it's just such an oddball. I'm not really familiar that much with African tribal music. Darkwave I've kind of dipped my feet in here and there with, but the combination of the two, I really can't think of anything else other than maybe one of the full-length albums by like Dead Can Dance. Played around with it a little bit, but this really experiments more on the African tribal music aspect. And again, I find it really infectious, especially the first half of this album. I don't know if it's either the second or third track. They utilize a sample of an elephant, and I know that sounds silly at first, but they make it work in such a way that it sounds honestly badass, and just gives them, like, again, their own unique sound. And I hope they continue on experimenting with the African tribal aspect about them, because with this album they kind of blend darkwave and the tribal aspect 50-50, whereas their sophomore full-length album that actually came out last month, I was a bit disappointed with, as they kind of side more on the darkwave aspect. But really curious to know if they'll do anything new within the future, because this is quite the standout from what I'm used to hearing. And they're signed to Tesco, which I know, as some of you guys know, Tesco's roster is more in the realm of like experimental noise and industrial acts. So I don't know, African Imperial Wizard kind of fits quite nicely within the Tesco roster. But yeah, really curious to know what they'll do next. Anyway, as for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork of this individual holding an AK-47, just like how I am, backside with the track listings, and just comes on a standard black vinyl limited to 300 copies. Up next is the third full-length album by Oakley's Melano. This is a one-man black metal project from Colorado. I'm pretty sure the same individual who's in Nightbringer is a part of this project. I believe his stage name is Nas Alchemeth, I'm pretty sure. And he's become kind of like this respected figure within like the modern United States black metal scene. And I would argue a lot of the praise that he gets, it's rightfully deserved. It's just, Nightbringer and Akhyls is just really vicious and intense black metal that always just sounds like you're in this spiraling vortex when you listen to how the riffs are structured, and the compositions are just massive and intense. And I would say the difference between Akhyls and Nightbringer is where Nightbringer has more of like the somewhat traditional approach of what you're used to with black metal. Akhyls leans more on dark ambience, and yeah, this is some really hideous, nightmare-inducing stuff that's really killer. And I need to get the previous album to this, which I believe is The Dreaming Eye. That is easily some of Nas Alchemist's best stuff he's ever done as a musician. But Melano is basically a continuation of that, but just more dark ambient interludes. But again, very vicious and very intense and really killer. And one of my favorite black metal albums of the respected year it was released, I'm pretty sure it was 2020. And I just recently got the LP for it, so I slept on it long enough. But yeah, need to get The Dreaming Eye. But Oakley's killer United States black metal. As for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings. Comes on a gatefold. This also includes a big ass booklet with lyrics inside and a photo of the mastermind himself on the back. And this LP edition comes on brown and clear split with gold splatter in the middle of it. Proceeding on next to Alec Empire with his full-length album, The Destroyer. As most of you guys know, Alec Empire is one of the original members for the group Atari Teenage Riot, as he also did solo work under his stage name around the same time period. And from what I've seen with a lot of discussions online is that a lot of people prefer Alec Empire's solo work to his work, what he did with Atari Teenage Riot. And maybe I'm just like in the minority here, but I've always preferred Atari Teenage Riot because I personally feel like the individuals a part of that group, along with Alec Empire, they bring out the best within each other, whereas Alec's solo work, yes, it's very ambitious and very just like ballsy sounding, but it can be a bit much because he experiments in so many different directions and styles that it's really hard for me to gravitate towards, you know, a particular era. But with this album right here, The Destroyer, this is Alec Empire at his most aggressive and angriest sounding, because this shit is just gritty and knuckle drag inducing like hardcore techno gabber music, or in this case with the genre they coined it as digital hardcore. And this is just some really ass-kicking stuff. Stuff on here like Down with the Shit, Suicide, Bang Your Head, Firebombing, which is my personal favorite song on here. This shit will get your blood pumping, and it's really, really ass-kicking. But yeah, as to where you can get this, I got my copy on Discogs, and I'm pretty sure there's still a few copies floating around because it's dirt cheap. Other than that, the artwork for this is two variations. This one is the black and white, and the other one, which is just the regular album artwork, it's not, you know, inverted colors. I'm pretty sure that's the European pressing, and this is the US pressing of this, or maybe I'm getting them too mixed up, but I know, again, there's two different variants of it. But anyway, enough of that rambling. As for the layout and packaging with this, it's quite beaten up, but again, you get it for what you pay for. You have album artwork, backside with track listings, comes with an insert sheet, and is just on double LP plain black vinyl. Up next is AMSG with their demo, The Principle of Evil Becomes the Ideal of the Promethean. Simply put, got this on Discogs for dirt cheap because I was just in the mood for collecting everything that I could by AMSG. And yeah, if you're in the mood for just raw, aggressive black metal, AMSG's discography is filled with bangers. And this demo, as short as it is, really good stuff. Again, for 15 bucks, I ain't complaining with it. But yeah, really not much else to say other than, again, if you want raw, aggressive black metal, check out AMSG. But as for the layout and packaging with this, you just got album artwork, backside with track listings and a photo of the two members. And this includes an insert sheet with the band logo, credits on the back, and it's just on standard black vinyl. Alright, so the next two LPs are something that I've been wanting to happen for the longest time, and I'm so happy that these exist now. But first up is Anaal Nathrakh with their demo compilation called Total Fucking Necro. Finally, this has an LP pressing, because for the longest time I've been wanting this. Ever since I've been a fan of these guys and got into the format of vinyl, been hoping one day that this would happen. And with all the attention that they've been getting steadily for a band like them that plays within the style of black metal, grindcore, and industrial, this was just long fucking overdue, and I'm so happy that Metal Blade pulled the trigger with an LP pressing and snagged this shit up as quick as I could. It's still available to get, but for me, I was just like in an adrenaline rush that I just had to get this rather than looking at the price tag, because it's got all their demo material. It's a demo comp, as I stated. It has two covers of Mayhem, that being Carnage and D Mysteries, which both sounds awesome. And it has, honestly, what I'd say one of my favorite Anaal Nathrakh songs, that being Ice Blasting Stormwinds. That song is so barbaric, even for Anaal Nathrakh standards. It's just so savage sounding. And I know I've been a fan of these guys from, you know, beginning to end, but I would arguably say their demos to around their sophomore full-length album, they were a whole different beast back then. They put more emphasis on the industrial aspect and just made all their chaos sound all the more wicked and intense and just spiraling out of control. That, again, I know I'm sounding like a fanboy, but I would argue from the time period of the late 90s to the early 2000s, Anaal Nathrakh was arguably one of the most chaotic and intense bands that were active during that time within extreme metal, because this shit is just fucking wicked. and I love every second of it. So definitely do not sleep on this. But yeah, as I stated, they're still available on Metal Blade Records. As for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings. This includes an insert sheet. This side has all of the demos that this compilation is a part of, and the other side is just filled with credits. And this LP pressing comes on red marble. And as well, they finally did an LP pressing for their one sole EP they ever did, that being When Fire Rains Down from the Sky, Mankind Will Reap as It Has Sown. Again, finally, I've been wanting this on LP for the longest time. I would say out of everything within their discography, this is Anaal Nathrakh putting the most attention to detail within the industrial aspect about them, because there's these electronic moments that come through that just makes everything feel like it's really spiraling out of control. And I wish they would kind of play around with industrial more, because as of late they've really abandoned that approach, again in favor of more melody and groove and hooks. Still, I absolutely love it, but again, as I stated, their early material, they were just a whole different beast. And Dave Hunt's vocals on this just feel so ungodly deranged. And it helps too that there's guest vocals on here, as Attila from Mayhem actually applies some of his vocals within this album. And again, it just makes it all the more inhumane and just diabolical. This shit's just fucking intense, and I know I'm just going on a splurge of just compliments with this band, but their early material, again, is just so fucking savage, and I love it. But again, put up through Metal Blade Records, and there are copies still available there, so you have no excuse not to pick this up. As for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings. This includes an insert sheet with a bunch of words, and a band photo on the other side. And this LP edition comes on gray marble. Up next is a project that I've been meaning to get some material by for a while now, but this is Aphex Twin with his album Richard D. James album. This is a very highly respected electronic project, all done by Richard D. James, this lovely fellow right here. And man, this is some wild stuff. As from what I've searched up, the genre tags for it are like glitch, IDM, experimental, like acid techno from what I've seen. But I've also read in some comments that people credited this as really influencing what we know today as breakcore, which makes sense because the drum and bass samples within this are very schizophrenic and just, you know, have something that we would remind me at least a little bit of Igor to an extent, but at some points it also reminds me of Venetian snares, but just way more, you know, psychedelic and acid inducing in a way. I guess this just feels like just such a trip from start to finish. Just again, the synthesizers and noises you'll hear, it's just weird but just wild and crazy and fun at the same time. And I definitely need to check out more by him. But I got this at Armageddon a few months back and just noticed that it was Aphex Twin and was like, I had to get it because from what I've heard, again, it's just all wild music, and definitely need to get more by him. But yeah, other than that, for the layout and packaging with this, pretty bare bones. You just got this creepy looking artwork, backside with just I don't know, a collage of, I'm not really sure what that is, with the track listings. And the opening for the LP is on the top, unlike others where it's usually on the right hand side, which is I guess a bit different. But yeah, this is like the most recent repress, so they're easy to get online, I'm pretty sure. Alright, so I was just talking about this band earlier on within this video, but next up is Atari Teenage Riot with their debut full-length album, Delete Yourself. Again, the innovators to that of what they coined as digital hardcore, where it's, you obviously take the mindset of punk music with its very, you know, politically charged attitude and sound, with the experimentation of that of electronic music. And I feel like they really paid attention during their time to what was happening with just you know, the mindset of what people were thinking in the 90s, where, you know, everything was becoming more digital and technology was advancing and everyone was looking forward to the future. And I don't know, just Atari Teenage Riot kind of took that into consideration but applied it with like the punk mindset. And it's just really innovative, creative, and ambitious stuff, I feel like. Songs on here like Start the Riot, Into the Death, Raver Basher, which is a really ass-kicking song, and my personal favorite, MIDI Junkies. This shit is just so fun to listen to, and I know I seem kinda outdated talking about these guys now, but regardless if this came out today or its original release date of 1994, it's just really awesome stuff for just music again. So yeah, Atari Teenage Riot, I don't care if they're outdated or not, this album fucking slays. And also as well too, I know for a lot of metal fans, the song Speed is basically a metal song, as they use a audio clip or they sample it from the band Power Mad, which is a power thrash band, from their song Slaughterhouse. The guitar riff within that song, they sample within this album on the track Speed, and again, it's just really fucking awesome stuff. But yeah, this is a one and only time pressing, I'm pretty sure, or at least this variant is. I know they have another variant that was released in the same year, so again, it's just a one and done pressing. But copies are kind of floating around here and there on Discogs, and I was lucky enough to get this for a reasonable price. But one thing I've noticed, and maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm rambling on here, but Atari Teenage Riot seems to have like quite a big fan base within Japan, I've noticed, from all the live shows they've done. As well, all the copies floating around of this album on Discogs, like all of them are located within Japan. So I'm really curious to know if there's a reason for that, or just the Japanese music scene just has a fascination with Atari Teenage Riot. Either way, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but an awesome album. But as for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork, backside with track listings, insert sheet with artwork, other side with lyrics, and just comes on a standard black vinyl. Up next is the debut full-length album by Bezes Mahash. So for the longest time I've always said Baise Ma Hache, but my friend who speaks French told me that you're supposed to say like a Bezes Mahash. Probably still saying it wrong. But yeah, this is a French black metal band that's often compared to that of Aphex Twin. The big difference being that Bezes Mahash sounds way more militant and aggressive. But I feel like for me personally, they lack the ambition and creativity of Aphex Twin. But that's just me being more of a fan of Aphex Twin. Regardless, I decided to pick this up to complete what I was missing within the Bezes Mahash discography, because Osmos, like always, be doing represses for everything, and last year they did a repress for this. But yeah, not much to really say about it other than it's just really prideful sounding black metal, so that should kind of give you a hint of what they think politically. But as for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings, comes on a printed inner sleeve, one side with lyrics, other side with additional artwork, along with an additional 7-inch that's just a single of an inclusion of bonus tracks of this record, and the LP for it is just on gray, along with the 12-inch vinyl itself, which is also on gray LP. Pretty sure this is limited to 100 copies. And I also got their latest album that was released last year, which, again, I don't really feel like pronouncing because I'm probably going to say it wrong, like any other thing that's in the French language. But yeah, Bezes Mahash really putting more emphasis now on the punk aspect with their overall music approach. That I would arguably say this is their most aggressive sounding material that they've done to date. Again, it has more of that militant, like knuckle dragging sound that is just Aphex Twin but just aggressive, and that's really it for what to say with this album. Still pretty solid stuff, and yeah, they're being pretty consistent as of late. But yeah, other than that, the layout and packaging with this is really, really top notch. So you have album artwork, backside with the track listings. Comes on a gatefold along with a big ass booklet with additional artwork and lyrics to go with each track. So this also comes on printed inner sleeves. You have side A, side B, and side C, and just comes on a standard black vinyl. Okay, so last record within this vinyl collection part that is sketched related is going to be one of the EPs by Bagathur. This is a one-man black metal project from Bulgaria, and what this is just basically raw black metal done with a strong emphasis on ambience. The keyboards really makes up the meat and potatoes of the melodies and hooks that you'll hear within this, and it's just written really damn well. That in a sense it reminds me of a more punk influenced like Paysage D'Avere to an extent, with just really good riffs, energy, and again ambience. I think I scored a copy of this through Hell's Headbangers a few years back in like 2020 or something like that. And lucky that I did, because this stuff really sells out quick. But yeah, other than that, not much to say with this, as the layout and packaging is pretty bare bones. So you have album artwork, backside with track listings, comes with the paper insert sheet with lyrics, and it's just on standard black vinyl. Last three records are all by the same band, and this is their last three albums that they did that finally got a repress. This being their fourth full-length album by Bal-Sagoth, The Power Cosmic. I was so ecstatic to see that this got repressed, and that Napalm Records were carrying copies of these and snagged them up right away. And I figured the pressings that I got were done by, I believe it's called Night of the Vinyl Dead. But when my copies came through, all three of them are the back on black pressings, which I'm pretty bummed about, because the quality sound of these are okay at best, which I'm bummed, because Bal-Sagoth is just this monumental sounding band of a mixture of black metal, symphonic, that is just so grand. It just sounds like a space opera battle is happening with every second you hear by them. But I've always considered them to be basically, you take the sound of summoning and you just add in blast beats, and that's essentially what Bal-Sagoth is, which immediately clicks with me. But I would say out of everything within their discography, The Power Cosmic is my personal favorite, because the riffs are just way more aggressive, the melodies just feel more grand, the vocals are executed with just a lot more energy. Just everything about this album is everything I would want within Bal-Sagoth. That, for me personally, I would consider this their magnum opus, but everything they've done is just top notch, so it's really hard to pick what I would consider to be the fan favorite. But again, my favorite is The Power Cosmic, and I would say this is the best place to start within their discography. But again, just check out anything and everything by them. But yeah, again, I have the back on black pressing, so to be honest, it's not like terrible, but if I were to ever come around the other pressing done by Night of the Vinyl Dead, I'll pick that up and end up selling these, because back on black pressings tend not to be that great, and this is a good representation of that. I shouldn't say, again, not great, but just not, you know, above average. I should just leave it at that. But again, still cool to have something by Bal-Sagoth on the LP format. As for the layout and packaging with it, it's back on black, so it's kind of bare bones for the most part. But you have album artwork, backside with the track listings. Comes on a gatefold with the lyrics inside, and this LP pressing comes on clear with blue splatter. I also have the follow-up to that. This is their second to last full-length album in their discography, that being Atlantis Ascendant. Basically everything I said about The Power Cosmic in terms of adjectives and descriptions, you can apply it with this album. It's just basically a continuation of that. And I know there's kind of like a concept going on here that Bal-Sagoth does, so really if anything, instrumentally it's the same. but lyrically in the narrative, it just continues on this story of, again, this just giant space opera that Bal-Sagoth does, which is pretty cool if you read along with it. But yeah, just another stellar album within their discography that's worthy of checking out like everything else. But yeah, not trying to rush here. It's just, again, killer, symphonic, epic black metals it's categorized under. But as for the layout and packaging with this, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings. Comes on a gatefold just like the previous album with the lyrics inside. And this final edition comes on clear with red splatter. And I have their latest album, that being the Chthonic Chronicles. Again, just like what I said with the previous two, with the description and adjectives applied to this album once again. The only differences I'm noticing, if I'm really nitpicking, is that the vocalist has more of like these narrative, like interlude parts within the album, that I guess he's really working more on like the theatrics with Bal-Sagoth with this particular album. But yeah, other than that, just spectacular, killer, epic, grand, symphonic black metal where the compositions just remind me so much of Summoning, but just faster and heavier, essentially. But again, you can't go wrong with anything within the Bal-Sagoth catalog. So once again, with the layout and packaging, you have album artwork, backside with the track listings, and just like the previous two, comes on a gatefold with the lyrics inside. Double LP, and this vinyl pressing is on clear with green splatter. Alright guys, that'll do it for this final collection part. Like always, links provided to everything I talked about will be in the description below, and that'll do it. So like always guys, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated, and have a great day.